that's how my morning is starting today on Friday the 26th. I'm going to talk to you in this video about looking for commercial work. I already told you how I go about trying to chase up canvassing for residential work. I find that that's quite effective for me personally. Out of all the other types of marketing, that way was definitely the most effective for me, is face-to-face contact. Now with commercial work, it's a little bit different to begin with, and then there's other things that you need to take into account as the whole picture. So without kind of running off into a tangent, because I've tried this video, I keep doing this, I keep trying to make certain videos and I just end up kind of going off a little bit off track and repeating myself, and the video turns into a 10-minute long thing when I really want it to be 5-6 minutes long. So again, and then long pauses. Right, so if I tell you how I go about doing it, and then if you've got any questions, you can put them in the comments below, or email me, and I'd be happy to answer any of them if you've got any. Right, so what I normally do is, if I've got half a day off or a morning off or a couple of hours off, and I want to fill that time by actually doing something productive in chasing new business, what I'll normally do is I will take a notepad and pen, and I will drive around the industrial areas of the city and the towns in my area. And what I do is I take note of the businesses that are there, their names, whether there's a good sized office building that possibly could use window cleaning, if there's grass and it looks overgrown and it doesn't look like it's being maintained. Well, these are all things that are kind of flashing up as a light bulb in my head as to, well, that's a potential sale right there. So I take note of the company name and a brief description of whatever service I feel I can offer. And I'll continue to do that for the entire time that I'm looking. I don't get out of the van and I don't go knocking on the doors there and then. Well, I try not to. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I can't resist the urge. I'm there, I'm like, oh God, that business has so many things I could sell that I'm going in now. You get that kind of bug and you're full of the confidence and you go for it. And I can't really do that the whole way with every company that I'm listing, because I'm dividing up my time. I'm trying to be more resourceful and proactive to begin with. So although sometimes I have got out and tried to make a sale, I try not to. And this is why. Because once I've got a couple of pages then of a list of businesses that I think could be targeted, I go away, I go home, I get on the computer and I start to Google that company and their address and their contact information, and then I go through the list and I do that. I write it all out, the contact information, whether it's emails or telephone number or whatever, and sometimes you can see whether there's certain departments have a certain phone number and all that. So I'll try and get that information relevant to begin with. Once I've compiled all the information that I need to start communicating with the companies, then I start with the first one and work my way through the list, because I've got all the names and numbers that I need. And the reason for that is that if I was to just go and Google one company and all their details and then phone them up, and then I do it with a second company, you're kind of dividing up your time between trying to find the information and getting in the zone. Well, this is for me, okay? This is just how I think. So when I start with one, I go from start to finish, and I'm working my way through the list so that I am in the zone for making the sale. You know what you're going to say. You're not your mind's not just being distracted, because see, I don't know about you, but see me, if I'm on the computer and I'm supposed to be looking up this information, I'm looking up this, that or the other, I tend to remember something else that needs done and I get distracted. And so I'm not really, although I can coherently make a sale whenever I get the information and phone them, it's just, if I break up that time, my mind isn't completely focused on getting the task at hand achieved. So that's why I do it one after the other, so that my mind is right. Okay, this is what needs to be done, this is what I'm going to do. I phone them up, I get in touch with them. Can I speak to somebody in the maintenance department? Yes, not a problem. What's his name, by the way? Ask the receptionist, so that you know who you need to speak to. So if you say, if the receptionist says to you, oh yeah, you need to speak to Dave, and then a lady comes on the phone from that department, you know that's the wrong person you need to be speaking to. And so instead of like starting your sales pitch with somebody and they say, oh, hang on a second, let me pass you on to the right person or whatever. So once you've got that done, you get speaking to them and you ask them, you explain who you are, what your services are, that you notice that they could possibly use a service of lawn care, of window cleaning or whatever. And then you try and book it in to make an appointment to come and give a quotation. Once you've done that, you turn up on the day, and this is where other factors come in, because how you turn up and how you appear, your appearance makes an impression, as well as your attitude and your knowledge and what you're looking at and how you're explaining things to the customer. So if you turn up in your car in trainers or a tracksuit, you know, it's not going to leave a good impression for a commercial client. So you have to bear that in mind. Whether these are things you want to work toward, if you've got a van or a small van, or if you've got a car and you want to upgrade to a van, think about getting some signage done. All these little things help portray a bigger image of professionalism. So then once you've got the quotation done, listen, you explain to the client, I will email you a copy of the quotation later on. You don't quote it right there and then, because by the time you go away and you think about it, there might be something that you've forgotten that you want to add into the quotation. So it just gives you a bit of a breathing space to really think about that potential job and what you're going to charge. So you say to the client, listen, I'm going to email you later on today with the quotation, and we'll speak then. So you send off the email and you say to him, looking forward to hearing from you. And if you don't hear anything for over the next week, give them a phone call back and say, listen, it's just a courtesy call to make sure everything is okay. Was the price competitive enough? Did it cover all the areas that the service that you need? Would you be happy with that? And take it from there. If the customer says, haven't had a chance to get around to looking at it, be polite and just let them know that's not a problem. Listen, I wasn't chasing you to make the sale. I just wanted to make sure you got the details, the information, and that you were happy enough with it. So that's fine. If he's busy, then you let it go, and if nothing happens again within the next week, you get back in touch and you give him another courtesy call. And the reason for this is because you're being patient to make the sale, and how polite and courteous you are makes an impression again. If the customer says no, that's fine. You can say to him, you can try and fish for the information of, was it not competitive enough, or was there any in particular reason? Generally you won't find out much detail from them, and so you just write it off and you move on to the next one on your list. And that's what I do. And it's a good way of touching base, and it means then also that while that person potentially might not take your service there and then, you've still got their contact information. And what do you do in 6 months' time? You give them a ring back up and say, listen, I'm just touching base. It's a courtesy call again, trying to make sure if there's any services that I discussed with you before, would you be in need of any of them now? It's not a big massive sales pitch and a meeting. It's a simple phone call that you've got the details, because you never know when that person, they will always need some service at some point. So you need to just be a bit proactive and see whether you can make it work for yourself. And that's it. Apart from trying to figure out where you want to take your business, how you want to appear, do you want to be approaching things like the bigger companies, well, the bigger companies have uniforms, they have, you know, vans with signage, their equipment, all that type of stuff, is something to bear in mind. And your attitude and your knowledge, like I said, there's lots of things that come into the equation to make that impression. So hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully that's what I do anyway. For me, it works for me. Hopefully it'll work for you. Thanks guys, always appreciate you watching these videos. Like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.